Dr. Heidegger's Experiments by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Adapted for ESL learners by Ed Cornwall. Dr. Heidegger, an eccentric old man, invited 4 elderly friends to his study. There were 3 men, Mr. Medbourne, Colonel Killigrew, and Mr. Gascoigne. The woman was called Miss Wycherley. They were all miserable for 2 reasons. Firstly, they hated being old and wanted to be young again. Secondly, they had all made bad decisions in their lives and wasted their talents, money, and health. "My dear friends," said Dr. Heidegger, seating the 4 people in his large study, "I need your assistance in a little experiment." Dr. Heidegger's study was dimly lit. All the items in the study were covered with layers of dust. Cobwebs clung to the corners of the room. There were 2 large bookshelves along one wall with hundreds of strange books. In the corner of the room was a giant cupboard, and hanging out of the cupboard door was a skeleton. Between the 2 bookshelves, there was a full-length mirror decorated with unusual markings. On the opposite side of the room, there was a large portrait of Dr. Heidegger's former fiancée. She had died the night before their wedding. The strangest thing in the room was a large book of magic. It was bound in black leather. In the center of the room, there was a small round table with a beautiful vase on it, filled with water. The sunshine shone through a gap in the curtain and reflected the 5 old faces of the people in the room. 4 opulent champagne glasses were also on the table. "My dear old friends," said Dr. Heidegger, "I need your help with an experiment." He picked up the black book of magic and opened it. From the pages of the book, he took a rose. The ancient flower looked incredibly old and delicate. It used to be a vibrant red, but it was now an aged brown. The portrait on the wall shows Sylvia Ward. "Many years ago, I planned to wear this rose at our wedding. I have kept it inside this book for 55 years. Do you think it could ever bloom again?" said Dr. Heidegger. "Impossible," exclaimed the 4 guests. Clearly, Dr. Heidegger had lost his mind, they thought. Dr. Heidegger picked up the rose and dropped it into the vase. Slowly, the crushed, dried petals began to alter. The stalk began to turn green, and the rose itself became a spectacular red. Incredible! The rose looked as fresh as it had 55 years ago. The 4 guests were very skeptical. They thought it was a magic trick. Dr. Heidegger assured them it was not a trick. He said that the water in the vase was from a magical fountain in a faraway land, the fountain of youth. Dr. Heidegger filled the 4 glasses with water from the vase. "When you drink this water, you will become young again. I warn you, don't repeat the errors of your past." The 4 grey, miserable guests raised their glasses to their lips and drank. Slowly at first, and then more quickly, they drank the water. They started to become younger, and when they realized this, they refilled their glasses and gulped the water desperately until their transformation was complete. 3 young men and 1 young woman now sat at the table. "We are young! We are young!" they exclaimed in joy. They leapt around the room, admiring themselves in the mirror. The men started to notice Miss Wycherley's beauty, and their old feelings began to stir once more. "You are beautiful," said the Colonel. "Dance with me." "No," interjected Mr. Medbourne. "She promised to marry me many years ago." Mr. Gascoigne's old feelings had also started to stir. All 3 men harassed her, wanting to win her for themselves. A moment later, and they were fighting with each other, all 3 full of passion for Miss Wycherley. A mad look came into their eyes. They reached for each other's throats. They wrestled with each other. Suddenly, the table in the middle of the room was knocked to the floor. The vase in the center smashed into 100 pieces. The magical water soaked into the floor. "What are you doing?" roared Dr. Heidegger. "You haven't learned a single thing from your past." He picked up the rose from the magic book, and he saw that it was fading and becoming old again. Soon, it was dry and ancient. The 4 guests realized what this meant. They were going to be old again, and a short time later, 4 elderly people once again sat around the table. All 4 of them lowered their heads in sadness. They were old, feeble, and even more bitter than before. "You are old again," said Dr. Heidegger, "but you have taught me a great lesson today. After seeing your behavior, I will never drink from the fountain of youth. True wisdom comes from the acceptance of growing old. It is a natural part of life." The 4 friends did not share the same opinion as Dr. Heidegger. They spent the rest of their lives foolishly seeking the fountain of youth so that they could once again become young. Comprehension questions. 1. Why did Dr. Heidegger invite the 4 guests to his study? A. To perform an experiment. B. To have dinner. C. To ask them for money. Question 2. Why were the 4 elderly friends miserable? A. They didn't like their town. B. They were bored of their lives. C. They did not like being old. Three. What was the strangest thing in Dr. Heidegger's study? A. The mirror. B. The black book. C. The table in the center of the room. 4. Who was in the portrait on the wall? A. Dr. Heidegger's former fiancée. B. Dr. Heidegger's mother. C. Dr. Heidegger's grandfather. 5. What was in the vase on the table in the center of the room? A. Wine. B. Flowers. C. Magical water. 6. What happened to the rose when it was first dipped into the vase? A. It became old and dry. B. It became vibrant and full of life. 7. How did the 4 guests feel when they drank the water? A. Joyful. B. Shocked. C. Sad. 8. Why did the 3 men start fighting each other? A. They all wanted to be the strongest. B. They wanted to keep the water for themselves. C. They wanted Miss Wycherley's affections. 9. The magical transformation was A. Permanent. B. Temporary. 10. What did Dr. Heidegger learn from his experiments? A. Growing old is part of life and we should accept it. B. We should do everything possible to remain young. Discussion questions. Imagine you are 80 years old. Would you drink from the fountain of youth to become young again, or would you stay old? Do you think there is a message in this story? What is your opinion on beauty treatments to keep us looking young? Do you think people should have hair implants, Botox, or cosmetic surgery to stay younger? Or do you think they should accept their age? Do you think elderly people are given enough respect in society? Thank you for listening to this story. Please follow the playlist if you want to hear more stories to help you to learn English. Until next time, keep learning English with Beats.